As more and more Americans are racking up debt as a result of the poor economy, criminal debt collectors are taking advantage. And these collectors employ illegal tactics, aggressively trying to get you to pay off your debts or perhaps even pay money you don't even owe. Nearly 15% of Americans today face collection calls, but you have rights. And personal finance specialist Skip Cowan is here to tell you what they are and what you need to watch out for. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm great. I love when you're here. Important information as always. And let's start off by telling people, what do we need to know about debt collectors?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, not all debt collectors are criminals.
Right.
But there are...
Darn.
But, yeah, well, but there are a certain element of folks that borderline, perhaps.
Yeah.
And especially when you get into really old debt. Stuff that's been around for a long time, has been sold to somebody else, etc. So you need to keep that in mind.
Okay.
Also, let me say this, that I certainly do not endorse people who intentionally take on debt with the idea of not paying it back.
Well, obviously, of course.
And I think that's a small percentage of the population. So what we're talking about are folks that have fallen into tough times. I mean, for God's sakes. A lot of people lost their jobs, layoffs, etc.
Yeah.
So the first thing you need to know about collectors is that their job is to collect the debt generally for somebody else.
Right. I mean, they are employed to get the job done.
That's it.
It's like don't shoot the messenger.
Well, that's right. But that's how they get paid.
Yeah.
And keep it in mind that a lot of times they're going to say things to you that are not necessarily something you should pay any attention to.
Like what?
Well, for example, somebody calls you, you know you owe the money, and you say, look, I can't pay it now.
I mean, sometimes it's not that you're trying to skirt the issue. You literally can't pay it.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. And so the person on the other end of the line is going to say, well then, if you can't pay it now, then I'm going to mark you down as refusing to pay. Oh, really? Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Because do you think your creditor hasn't figured that out already?
Yeah, obviously I can't pay it if I haven't paid it.
Yeah, so just ignore that. It's an idle threat. It means nothing.
So don't get too afraid of that.
No.
Okay, well, then what if they decide that they want to, I know a lot of times you hear them discussing, they say things like, well, we're going to, tell this to this credit agency, or if you try to get a credit card or you try to get a car, we'll be reporting you. I mean, they're not supposed to share your information with other people, right?
No, in fact, they cannot. The Fair, I got to look at this because it's hard for me to say.
Okay.
The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act specifically states who can be contacted relative to a debt, all right?
Oh.
Those are three entities: you, your spouse if you're married, or your attorney if you have one. Otherwise, no one else.
Really?
No one else. And keep this in mind. If they call you at work, under that act, all you have to say to the collector is, don't ever call me here again, ever.
Because you don't always want to mix your personal, private business with your job.
I don't want anybody to know that who I work with, what my finances look like.
Exactly. So that's wrong. So if they do that, you should not be intimidated by those kind of things, right?
Absolutely not. Walk away from that. Hang up. And you know what? If they persist, report them to under that act, because they can get fined for it and be put out of business.
Wow. Okay.
Don't hold back on that, please. Don't. I mean, you've got to report them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people do get intimidated, and then they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble, and they don't realize this is wrong. This is wrong. So now, okay, so what about if, okay, I get this a lot. Oh, hello, Mr. Such and Such. We're calling about your debt. I am not Mr. Such and Such. My name is Miss Stanzione. I mean, you get the wrong person a lot. So what happens in those cases when they keep on calling and it's the wrong person?
That's amazing to me sometimes, and it's happened to me personally.
Yes.
And I have a very unusual first name, which I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. It's not Skip.
Obviously, Skip is a nickname, right?
Okay.
But I got a call, and they said, Mr. Cowan, and they used my real name, and I said, yes. We're calling about this debt at the Wells Fargo that goes back 8 or 9 years. I said, well, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So the question they asked me was, well, what's your Social Security number? Oh, wait a minute. Stop.
Red flag.
That's not going to happen. Don't ever. I don't care if you think I don't care who you think it is.
Okay.
Don't give it over the phone, ever.
And sometimes you're in that moment, you just don't think. I'm so glad you're saying this, because I've been in that moment.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It really is. And you think, oh my gosh, I don't know this. And you want to prove it so bad.
Right.
But guess what? The guy on the other end of the line knows you want to prove it so bad, he's going to take advantage of you.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Yeah, oh my.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about if you can pay a little bit at a time. I mean, what's your best chances if somebody calls you and they say, okay, you owe this debt, I mean, you really don't want your credit score affected, so you think, well, maybe I'll just pay like $20. How do you know that you're not being scammed? Or, I mean, how do you know?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, you know if you owe the debt.
Right.
I mean, if you do recognize the debt and the debt collector says, let's make a deal, and you're willing to make a deal, $20 a month, $10 a week, whatever it is, I think that's fine. But keep this in mind, Nikki, it is not going to help your credit score.
It's not.
And a lot of collectors will say, hey, you know what, Nikki, you make this deal with us, and your credit score 520, a year from now it's going to be 620.
Right.
That's a lie.
It is?
It's a lie. Because that's going to stay on your record for 7 years from your last payment.
Oh my gosh.
So think about that. You make a $20 a month deal, you owe $4,000. How many years is it? I mean, do the math.
I know. It would take me to a commercial break.
You probably can't live long enough.
Oh my gosh.
To get that off
scary.
of your credit report.
Well, what about when they say things like, well, we're going to sue you if you don't pay this?
You know, again, under that act, the Fair Credit Reporting Practices Act, they can't say that to you unless they're absolutely serious. Now, if you owe a debt and you know it and you can pay and you refuse to pay, then you better be ready to get sued. But otherwise, that's an idle threat. Ignore it and report them.
Great information. I hope everybody's really listening up. It's so important that we just make sure we don't get scammed and that we take care of our debts.
Well, the key is also, you know, try to avoid getting into long-term debt if you can. And I know the bad things happen to good people sometimes, but my gosh.
But just do the best you can, right? That's all we can do. And at least we're informed. Being informed is the first step. Thanks as always. Love when you're here.
Always a pleasure.
And after the break, we'll tell you what's fresh this month at the farmer's market. You don't want to miss it.